item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any proposed changes to the agenda that was circulated? My understanding that one of our applicants has asked to postpone, and that is, that's 24 ZBA 005. So I guess I would entertain a motion from the ZBA to postpone that since the applicant has made that request.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
So, item 2 is now postponed to our next meeting date. And that brings us to approval of minutes. I understand we've got some minutes that our secretary has already given his magic touch to. Are there any other suggested changes to the proposed minutes from June 4th?
Take a quick peek at the copy that just tucked away. I don't think I saw anything. No, I didn't have anything.
Okay.
I'll move approval.
Hearing none, I have a motion to approve.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved as amended by our secretary. That brings us along to public comment on non-agenda items. Is there somebody or anybody here who'd like to talk to us about non-agenda items? Yes, sir. Stand up, tell us who you come up, make sure your mic is turned on.
There's a
That's
button
not
on
that
top.
easy to
Push
do
it down to the
sometimes.
screen. Yeah, on top. There you go. Push it down to the screen and then you say.
Okay? And then tell us who you are, where you live, and what you want to talk about.
My name's Dan Lofgren. My wife and I have lived here in Dexter Township going on 8 years. We have a home, and I have a couple of neighbors, and I have issues with one of them. And back in October of last year, 23, I worked with Ashley. We actually got her out, inspected the property. She wrote up a nice, I've got all this paperwork and documentation. If anybody wants to look at it while I'm talking, I'm happy to pass them on.
Well,
Okay, I'll keep going.
Tell us more about
Sure.
what you want to talk to us
She
about.
wrote a wonderful letter, spelled out all the violations that they have on their property. There were 8 of them. And they said, we need to meet with the Allens. And I said, fine. And they did, and then they came back and said, well, we need a little more time. They're working on something. And that's when Ashley bowed out, and this Grayson, what's his name?
It's Grayson.
Okay.
He's from
He took
Carlisle,
over,
Wortman.
but hasn't done a thing. All he's done is send me an email, 2-sentence email, saying the township has determined the case is closed. And I sent her pictures just a month ago, showing that it's not done. There's still the garbage and building materials and parks, cars on the property, on the land, or grass. There's a whole bunch of things going on.
All right, well, let me
Sure, go ahead.
take a time out here. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals. We handle requests for variances. We handle people who want an interpretation of the meaning of the zoning ordinance.
That's kind of what I'm after.
Sorry?
That's kind of what I'm after.
Well, but I don't think that you have a matter that is presented to us for consideration this evening. It sounds to me like you are aggrieved by the lack of action by
The township.
Grayson.
Well, it's the township. He used the township name. The township has determined that the case is closed. He's just a
So my
contractor.
suggestion to you is, your remedy is to get in touch with the township supervisor and let her know
Tried. I've left messages. She doesn't
what's
return my calls.
troubling you, but as the ZBA, we don't have jurisdiction to help you solve your problem.
Okay, so what is the process to appeal the township's determination that the case is closed? What do I have to do?
Talk to the supervisor,
She won't return my calls.
talk to the supervisor,
Who?
talk to the supervisor, and if you don't get the kind of relief you're after,
Okay.
I don't have a good solution for you. You could hire an attorney and try
Well,
to
I've got
sue.
one. If that's what I
Try
gotta
to-
do, I'll sue. that far along in this process.
Oh.
You guys have just flat stopped enforcing your ordinance with these people.
Again,
I understand, you're
CBA,
not the guy. That's great.
not
But if you're
enforcement.
telling me that the supervisor's the one that I have to talk to resolve this, she doesn't even return my phone calls. So if that's the case, I'll have a lawyer write a letter to her saying we want to appeal it. Is that the process?
Well, I don't think it's an appealable issue. I think
It's
you're
not.
talking about being aggrieved by the township's failure to act.
Enforce their ordinances,
And-
that's correct.
I'm not your attorney, but that sounds like some form of litigation.
So the township just says, we're not gonna enforce it, go pound sand. That's what you're telling me they're doing.
I'm telling you that I don't know what the township's doing.
I have
only
their-
hear
I have their
your
letter.
story about it, and I'm telling you that you're talking to a board that doesn't have the authority to give
And
you
you're saying the
the
supervisor has the authority.
supervisor is our highest ranking official.
Okay, so what happens if she says, we're not gonna do anything?
Then you will talk to your attorney about what your alternatives
All
are.
right, that's cool, if that's what I gotta do.
I have a question. Are these zoning ordinance violations, or are these care of property violations? What is it that you think is?
Well, they've got fences without permits on my property, that's the biggest one. Second, they've got garbage, building materials, pallets, junk
Right.
stacked up.
That's care of premises. What else?
Well, I got pictures, want to see them?
Are
That ought to be
any of
enough.
these violations of the zoning ordinance, I guess is what I'm asking. Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't know how many of you have met me, but I'm Sarah Davis, I'm with Bodman, I'm one of the township's attorneys. This issue that Mr. Lofgren has brought to the attention of the board has been at the attention of the code enforcement office. It has been investigated by the code enforcement office. A letter of violation has been sent by the code enforcement office. The violation with regard to the fence has been resolved.
No, it
The
hasn't.
violations with regard to the remainder of what he is addressing has been looked at and has been declined enforcement, which is perfectly within the right of the township to do.
So he could have a
Perfectly
permitted,
within the right
now,
of the township to do when they decide what to enforce and what not to enforce based on the resources that they have. Mr. Lofgren has been advised that on several occasions, once at least by me. So,
Okay?
Maybe a question for Sarah, if I could, please. So in our zoning ordinance, section 29.04 jurisdiction, Article B, appeals of decisions, the zoning board of appeals shall have the authority to hear and decide appeals of decisions where it is alleged by a person aggrieved that there is an error in any order, requirement, permit, decision, action, determination, or refusal by the director of planning and zoning or any other official or planning commission in administering or enforcing the provisions of this ordinance unless otherwise noted. Is that a potential step that a person who feels aggrieved can, I haven't experienced an appeal to the zoning board of appeals in that manner before, but is that a step before they have to seek legal remedy?
So when it comes to the decision by a township not to enforce its ordinances, the township has discretion in what ordinances, based on the township can't possibly remedy every situation that and every complaint that comes before it. I'm sure that you understand that unless they hire,
Sure.
27 or 30, 40 code enforcement officers. So decisions are made based on the health, safety, and welfare of the township. And what I understand is a drive-by has gone, there have been drive-bys, nothing is visible from the front of the property.
I've given
They
you
are
guys
not
permission to come on my
permitted to
property.
go onto the property without the permission of the property owner. You're not permitted to fly a drone over the property because that violates the Fourth Amendment. So when they drive by the property and they don't see any violations, they decline to enforce. If Mr. Lofgren has issues with his neighbor as it pertains to his driveway, encroachments, fence issues, nuisance issues, he's welcome to visit his own attorney and file a private nuisance action, and he's been told that as well.
So-
As it pertains to the lack of enforcement, he can certainly file an appeal as he normally would through the normal processes to get it properly in front of this board to address that appeal. I can imagine that he would probably receive
So
Thank
it's
you.
okay for a non-permitted fence to be installed on my property. There's one pole that's on his property, the rest of the 30 feet of fence is on my property.
I think your remedy is to speak to your attorney. I mean, I'm a lawyer, I could think of things you could do. She stated some. This
We've
body
already
does not have jurisdiction to give you the relief that you want.
He just read
At
it.
least not tonight, we don't.
Well, okay, that's fine. I
My
don't have to
original question
resolve
was
it
whether
tonight.
there's a violation of the zoning ordinance.
And I've got pictures to show that it is.
All right, Mr. Lawfren.
Yes.
I think that we have heard your issues. I think you've heard from the township's attorney, and I think
So
that.
your ordinances don't mean anything. We
We're
have
not
at the
here to
discretion
debate
to
with you,
enforce any of
sir.
that at
So
any time.
if-
Is that what you're telling me?
What I'm telling you is that we have spent enough time on this, and you can work through your attorney, or you can look at section 29 about bringing an appeal to the,
Oh, I'll do that, for
well,
sure. So that's fine. Section
fine.
29 of,
what.
At 29.04 jurisdiction of the
zoning
ZBA.
ordinance gives
it's the
us,
zoning ordinance.
gives,
Yeah.
gives us
And
jurisdiction
I'm
to
sorry,
hear
give me that
appeals.
number again one time.
29.03.
04.
Sorry.
Now, like our township attorney says, that may not result in the relief that you want, but it may be a way of
I just can't.
getting it out in the open before you have to spend the
Yeah,
bigger
I
bucks.
appreciate that. I just am amazed that people can just ignore your township ordinances and even have people, and I did give permission for my property to have them come up on my property and see it all from my property. So that's not an excuse. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
well-
I'll be back.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Is there anybody else here this evening that wants to address this body on a non-agenda item? Hearing none, we're ready to move on to action items. And tonight's action item number 1 is 24 ZBA 004. It's Walter Construction Company on behalf of Jim Gaga, sorry. Does anybody have a conflict of interest or ex parte contact to report about this issue?
No.
No. Nope. Hearing none, that matter is resolved. We're ready for staff presentation. Tell us about it.
All right, so, starting at page 10 of the packet, you will see the staff report. The address again is 8797 Fairway Drive, and the project description. They would like to demolish and remove an existing single-family home to construct a new two-story single-family home with attached garage. This property is located in the Lake Residential Zoning District. The subject property is .319 acres, or roughly just under 14,000 square feet. It's completely surrounded by Lake Residential. The future land map indicates Lake Residential will remain currently existing. There's a 954 square foot single-family home and a detached garage. As I said, the applicant's proposing to remove the existing home and construct a new one with an attached garage. The proposed two-story single-family home with attached garage will have a footprint of about 1,600 square feet. In the project narrative that I wrote up, I incorrectly said that there are no side yard lot lines. That's why I did provide a map here, or an aerial image, so you can see the existing site conditions a little bit better. I also have labeled all of the lot lines, front, rear, and there is one side. The side yard lot line does not affect the proposed construction in any way. So, they will still need the same variance request, but there is one side yard lot line. The proposed variance request will be for one of the rear yard lot lines, and they are proposing relief from the 30-foot rear yard setback requirement to a 7-foot. I believe the intent here, in speaking to the applicant, typically that rear lot line that they're seeking relief from, would be considered a side lot line without the two road frontages. And so the intent was they were trying to adhere to what would normally be the side yard setback requirements. Because as you can see, the lot is very irregularly shaped. It also is currently legally non-conforming in its size at .319 acres. As we know, it needs to be a half an acre minimum lot size in Lake Residential. There also, it currently is legally non-conforming with the size, it's technically too small. And then the other non-conformities would be a list of the different setbacks. The current house isn't meeting the current rear yard setback for the house or the existing garage, or the front yard setback. And the corner of the existing garage also doesn't conform to the side or rear lot line that it touches. So it already existing is, there are a lot of legally non-conforming issues.
Anything else before we start peppering you with our questions?
I don't think so.
Questions for Ashley?
Could you say the part again about that would be considered a side yard setback? Did I
Sure.
understand that correctly? I get it, that this seems to be one of those lots that has two front yards,
Correct.
but the orientation and all, I don't get a side yard out of that. I get
Yeah, so I color-coded it on my plan set. This is the only side yard setback currently. It's right
Okay.
there along. So everything else, yellow is front, green is rear. The way we define rear yard setbacks is anything opposite a front yard setback, basically, and the front yard is defined based off of the actual road frontage.
So
So because this is.
so the green line
Yep.
that you have R marked above it,
Mhm.
is that a rear?
Correct.
Because by the plan, it looks like that's where the 7 feet is.
That's
Correct.
that's where the
Yep.
requested
So
variance
normally
is
this would
too.
be 30 feet a requirement because it's a rear yard setback, and they're asking for 7.
Right, so did I misunderstand that you said that that could be considered a side yard?
No, it's not considered a side yard. I
Okay,
was saying the
all right.
intent in speaking to the applicant about
That's
why they chose
where I was
that
hung up.
number was because, they were trying to
Okay.
adhere to something and they, picked a
All
side
right,
yard
because if it was a
setback.
side yard, I don't think they need to be here.
No, they
correct?
would not.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Ashley? Just to confirm, that 7-foot rear yard setback that they're asking for, is that the current location of the existing structure? Because it kind of looked to me like it was.
So I don't have the actual plans for the existing structure. When I measured it, which isn't super accurate or exactly accurate based off of Map Washtenaw's aerials and GIS data, it looks to me like the existing house is about 9 feet from the rear yard setback there. So if it's not exactly, it's close. But they are proposing to demolish the house.
Understand?
Yep.
Just looking for reasoning,
Sure. And maybe the applicant can speak more to that.
okay? All right, any other questions for Ashley? Hearing none, we're ready for presentation from the applicant.
My name is Jim Walter, with Walter Construction, and like the project describes, we're removing that existing house, which is over the lot line and into the road right away. So we're improving that situation. And it is very difficult to realize, why isn't the lakeside the front of the house, and then the fairway side is the side yard, and the rear where the garage is the furthest away from the lake. So your house is facing the lake, and that's I feel, is the front yard, or the front setback. And then I know that when you have a road next to it on that side, fairway side, we do require, and your laws say right in the paperwork that you need 20 feet on fairway. So I have the 20 feet clearance. So if we call that other side yard, that 7-foot area, a side yard, and we call the front looking at the lake, then I don't have to be here, but, so I think it's just a little technicality that should be able to be reconciled tonight.
Do you know whether the current structure is 9 feet or 7 feet? Do you know?
I would say it is probably 9.
So you're increasing the nonconformity in this direction by 2 feet, that's from what it is now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm trying to get, to say that's a side yard.
I understand
And
that.
if it's a side yard, it's only 5 feet, and I shifted it 2 feet just to give me the variance for the height, I wouldn't need anything. And it's a narrow house that I designed, it's only 30 foot wide to fit on that narrow lot and meet all your other requirements.
I got a couple of quick questions, I hope that they'll be quick. You haven't provided us any drawings that show the location of structures on to the north of this. What's up there that?
Yeah, there's a garage now on my property, or on the client's property, and a driveway, and then there's a large hill, and that house sits up on a hill, overlooking.
So do you know how far it is from the lot line here to the garage that's on the adjacent property?
I can show you this drawing, this is the proposed, we got 30 feet to the garage.
I'm talking about over here.
Oh, on the side?
Well, what I was calling
Yeah,
kind of
okay,
north, but,
Okay, all right. I was thinking, okay.
so what's
There's
there?
a house there, and, I'm not sure how close to the lot line it
Okay.
is.
Are you aware of the fact that our ordinance asks you to show us in your drawings the distance to structures within 100 feet?
No, I did not know that.
Okay, well, that's something that sometimes is useful to us,
Okay,
okay?
yeah.
And have you looked at the possibility of placing this home someplace else so that you don't need that much of a variance?
With that 20 feet requirement on fairway,
Right, with this design, you're gonna encroach upon something. You chose the backyard instead of the front yard.
because I never thought it was a backyard.
Okay? All right,
I always, I've done other houses in subdivisions that you have corners, and I knew the front setback and and that road setback is always the same. But they always call that other side as a side yard. Ashley was telling me that I have 2 front yards and I have 2 backyards.
yeah, that's
And
certainly
that
what
doesn't-
Dexter Township has done for as long as I've been
That
here. We
is how it is?
Always do front and rear opposite each other, but
But, so you can have 2 fronts and 2 rears?
You can, and it plays havoc with trying to, to
That's
put
why
a
you're here,
structure on
right?
it. That's why we're here, that's
Yeah.
right. All right, any other questions?
If I could ask Ashley a question, please. Sometimes situations like this, we will get, if it's in here, I apologize, I didn't notice it, kind of a rundown of what the properties, the other properties in the area are, relative to some of the relief that the applicant is asking. Do you happen to know what the setbacks are of other properties in that area off of Fairway Drive especially? I'm just wondering, is it, well, most everything, it seems, around the lakes ends up encroaching upon the local roads. And in most cases, yeah, the road is, 10, 12 feet maybe, it looks like on the driven portion. And issue if the front yard setback from Fairway Drive is 18 feet and we get 9 feet for the backyard. I think kind of the Brooks, I'm not sure that Brooke was making a point, but the point that he mentioned, we would not be, or Peter mentioned, we would not be expanding an existing non-conformance in that manner. Just asking, what does that do for us, if anything?
I mean, it doesn't, they would still need to ask for a variance. They have corrected they're currently encroaching in the front yard on Fairway Drive, and the proposed plan corrects that. They do fit within the required 20 feet. Really, it's just a matter of, does the applicant, are they proposing to encroach in the rear or the front? And that's kind of at their discretion to decide how they want to design the house and, orient it on the lot.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a moot point anyhow, I guess, my whole line of questioning / reasoning, because what we published in the paper was request for variance from section 7.02 rear yard setback. So we can't change the design on the fly tonight anyhow.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay. That means that, thank you, sir.
Okay.
We're now ready for public hearing. Is there any, do we have any letters? Do we have folks that are excited about this?
We do not have any letters to share.
Okay. Is there anybody here who would like to speak to us about this issue? Apparently not. That moves us along to deliberations and standards of review. Anybody have any comment?
My only comment would be, I don't see why a preference of moving it closer to the road is superior to where he's placed it, so.
My only thought was that essentially nobody is affected if he moves it a couple feet closer to the road, and the neighbors are more affected by 2 feet more than they've had for ages. But I guess part of our process is, given that there are no inputs, nobody attended, we have apparently no letters, emails from the neighbors that say, hey, we don't like this idea, it's been duly noticed in the paper, the sign was out there bigger than life in the yard, so.
I think a layperson would see this as a side yard.
I certainly think there's logic in that. I also realize it gets complicated when you've got a corner lot, but yeah, I think there's some logic to that.
I guess my view is that they've come up with the best plan that they can on an unusual lot, and that's what I'm thinking. Are we ready to go through the decision criteria?
Yeah, fine with me.
Ready?
All right. So what we got here is a proposal to allow a 7-foot rear yard setback instead of a 30-foot rear yard setback. Number one, practical difficulty, 2906C1. The strict application of the terms of this ordinance would constitute a practical difficulty. Don?
Yes.
Sorry, your name.
Aaron,
Aaron?
yes.
Marty?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Peter? And the chair votes yes as well. Clearly, the shape and size of this lot makes it impossible to build a house that would meet all of our setback requirements. 2, physical condition, 2906C2. The practical difficulty is due to some physical condition peculiar to the property involved. Don?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Yes.
Marty? Peter?
Yes.
Again, it's a most unusually shaped lot. Haven't seen one that looked like that in a while. So clearly, something having to do with the with a peculiar condition of the property. 3, self-created, 2906C3. The practical difficulty is not self-created. Don?
Yes, it's not
Aaron?
self-created.
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter? And the chair votes yes as well. There's no evidence that the applicant had anything to do with creating the shape of this lot. 4, reasonable amount necessary, 2906C4. The variance is a reasonable amount necessary to mitigate the practical difficulty. Don?
Yes, seems reasonable.
Aaron?
Seems reasonable, yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We've talked through the problems of moving it around on the lot, and clearly they've attempted to get the front setback within boundaries, and in so doing, the back setback was sacrificed a little bit. That's what they had to do. 5, public health, safety, and welfare, 2906C5. Approval of the variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, and welfare. Don?
Yes, no injury.
Aaron?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And I agree, there's been no evidence that this would cause any problems with public health, safety, and welfare. 6, does adjacent properties, 2906C6. Approval of the variance will not affect the use of adjacent properties or the area in a substantially adverse manner. Don?
Yes, and I should note that it appears that the adjacent properties would also use it as a side yard.
Aaron?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Chair votes yes as well. 7, intent of the ordinance, 2906C7. Approval of the variance is consistent with the intent and purpose of this ordinance. Don?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. Ordinarily, at this time in our meeting, I would turn to the vice chair and ask her to propose a motion, but I'm going to try to rise to the occasion. And I move to approve the variance petition number 24 ZBA 005 for the property located at 9405 Link Drive.
I think you want
So
4.
for, we're on 004.
Oh, and let me jump up to the correct motion.
There we go.
I'd like to start over again from the top on my motion. See, that's why we leave it to Beth to do these. Okay, I'd like to move to approve the variance petition number 24 ZBA 004 for the property located at 8797 Fairway Drive, tax ID 0406461001, for the requested variance under section 7.02 to permit a rear yard setback of 7 feet instead of the normally required 30 feet, recognizing any legal nonconformities.
Second.
Okay, let's do this on the record. Don?
Yes.
Aaron?
yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Chair votes yes as well. Congratulations, you have your variance. I'm sure you know that you want to gather up your paperwork and get going on this job, because otherwise you're not going to get paid. But more importantly, it's got to be acted on within a year or take some other action, okay? All right, thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
I gotta go back and find out where we are in the agenda.
We should get public comment at all item
I think
2 is.
we might be. So we're back to item 7, public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anyone here, Jim, who would like to address the ZBA on any matters not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we can move on to concerns of ZBA members, planning and zoning department, and the recording secretary. Always start with Jan. What are your concerns?
Good to know,
Wow.
thank you.
Oh, you're always good, thank you. Okay, Ashley, any issues?
I don't know if anybody had questions about the Department of Planning and Zoning report that was included in the packet. I'd be happy to answer any of those if you had them. Also, I informed the township last week that I am moving on, and next week will be my last week here, so.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Congratulations.
You have really tried really hard to take good care of us, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been a good time here. I've enjoyed my time.
Good, good, good. Any concerns of ZBA members?
I have a couple, if you will indulge me for a moment. I think these are questions for Ashley. I hope she still enjoys her last ZBA meeting, but there's two things. One of them, I just observed myself driving down Territorial near Toma Road. There's presumably Consumers Gas, Consumers Energy, Gas City Gate Station. This building was built decades ago. It houses some stuff. My understanding from talking to some old planning commission members is that there was a process for that. It was not just an administrative permit. Now, whether that was a special use permit or what, I don't know. But for years, it's been this thing that kind of looks like a house. Now, I'm not sure that, what I've been told, I've never seen any documents because this way predates me, but, you know, maybe the landscaping isn't what it should have been, I don't know. But now, what I see out there, and at first I thought, well, maybe they're fiddling with something, this is a temporary issue, but it looks pretty permanent driving by tonight, especially. There are huge pipes, big pipes sticking out of the ground. Do you know what they're doing down there? You know, first question. Second question is, did they seek and did the township grant a permit? And I guess third part of that question is, so in the end, what's it gonna be? What's it gonna look like?
Without an address and being able to look at my files, it's hard to know the answer to that offhand. I don't know if it's the same project. I do know there is a consumer site currently going through a site plan review. That doesn't come to me, that comes to Megan. She handles site plan reviews. And I do know it's an administrative one, so it's not something that would be going to planning commission. I can't confirm if it's the same property you're talking about, if they have more than one. If you want to email me the address, I can definitely look into it and respond to you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can figure out if it has an address. Well, it must have an address, but I could send you a copy of Google Maps location or something like that. It seems like it's probably not the one because this looks like all constructed, whatever they're doing with the piping. They haven't covered it all, covered the excavation up yet. However, it is, the part that's sticking out looks like it's gonna be permanently sticking out. And if in fact that was either special use or, something that had to have gone through the planning commission process 30 years ago or whatever, it seems like that would not have been permitted administratively this time around. So I'm guessing this is a different thing.
Yeah, I do know that application is something to do with updates or upgrades to an existing site, but that's as much as I know. I haven't personally
Okay.
looked at the plans.
Yeah, I'll get you something else on that then, thank you. And the second one I had, a resident has brought to my attention that there is a property, don't know the address, but on Algonquin, that the township has approved an accessory dwelling unit that, if I'm getting the facts correctly, and, I'm just getting input from somebody, it would seem that is not allowed. So am I misunderstanding something?
it's not an accessory dwelling unit, it is a single-family residence.
But it's on a piece of property, I think that there's a front lot and a back lot, and they're separated by a road or an easement, which under our zoning ordinance, that second piece not only cannot be separated, but it can't, it's not large enough to build on without some sort of variance.
That would be the one, I don't know if you
Yeah.
have more to add.
So, I know what one you're talking about, and that, so we're currently reviewing
Okay.
what's happening there. It's my understanding a building permit was issued. I don't know that it was, issued in any kind of error, but we're looking at that
All right.
currently, and, I'm preparing a legal opinion for the township in that regard, and that's something that, I wouldn't wanna share the legal opinion in a public meeting,
Yeah,
but you
yeah.
can certainly get access to that.
Okay.
As
It's
an
just,
official of
if
the
we're all,
township,
if
once
we're all
it's
looking at
ready.
the same thing, there are two different ways that can go wrong. You can't have two residences, two dwelling units, primary dwelling units on a parcel, especially that size, and you can't peel that off to where the first one becomes even more non-conforming because it's smaller than it used to be. Point something acres, it's not half an acre, which is what we actually require, and then the second one, if that was peeled off, that second one is totally unbuildable for similar reason, but if,
Like I said, I'm looking at it, and
well, all I'm
Yeah,
asking is
yeah,
that
you
you're
talked
looking at it
about it after the
from
meeting,
both
too.
directions, because something happened where it seems like it didn't get looked at properly from a single viewpoint, you know what I mean? So let's just make sure that,
yeah.
okay, it's
If
all
you wanna
covered.
talk after the meeting, I can certainly.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, that's all I had.
I just had, you don't know yet who's gonna take over your job, do you?
No, the job has not been posted yet. I believe that will happen next week. Obviously, it's gonna take some time to go through an
So
interview
will we just
process.
cancel all the ZBA meetings now until sometime in November? or
That would
what?
be nice if it worked that way. I don't know if there will be a meeting at this point. I don't have any new applications. The person who withdrew their application today, I don't know if she intends to come back immediately next month or
Well, I
wants
was
to
gonna say,
post
it's
longer.
important that what we did was we moved to postpone, which would mean that we wouldn't have to renotice and so forth. Let her know that that's what we did. If we don't do it next time, then I'm not sure exactly what happens with her.
Sure.
The money she's paid and all that kind of stuff.
I do believe her intent is to do it next month, but she came in kind of a hurry today and,
Okay, all right, well,
so
that's just
we'll
fine.
figure that out.
What I wanted to do, by way of complaining to you as you walk out the door, is I wanted to be sure that your successor takes a look at the requirements of Article 26 about what we're supposed to get when we are reviewing these requests. And I'm seeing things that we're not getting. I mentioned to the previous gentleman that, we're supposed to see distances to nearby structures. We're supposed to, I believe, get a survey, a drawing based on a survey, not just based on, I went out and measured this and here's my representation to you guys about these things.
Yeah, so the article that you're referring to, the requirements of a plot plan, if you go one section before to 26.02, plot plans aren't technically required for variance applications. If you go to section 29.05, it does say it could include a plot plan. It's up to the discretion of the Director of Planning and Zoning what needs to come in an application. But to your point, a completed plot plan is a requirement of a zoning permit application. And I did print out, this is kind of We just started using it this week. This would be an example for Lake Residential, the checklist that we would go through at the time of a zoning permit application to make sure all of these things are on the plot plan we receive as part of that, which that is dictated in the ordinance as being a requirement.
I got that, and I understand that whether or not some things are included in the plot plan that we get are discretionary with the
Sure.
Director of Planning and Zoning. I'm gonna argue that there are things that we're not getting that
That you
ought
feel like would be
not to
helpful.
be omitted.
Sure.
And so things like the location of, I mean, one of the things that I know that I've read is that we should be seeing the location of the existing structures on the lot. That should be on their drawings.
That is a requirement of plot plans, yes.
And why would the Director of Planning and Zoning decide in her discretion not to insist that that be in the materials that we get?
I think it's probably because sometimes applicants haven't finalized their plans prior to coming to the ZBA, and so getting, sometimes those materials, they're waiting to see if a variance will be approved or not before they get an architect or an engineer to draw up, those plans to that degree of specificity. Obviously, a lot of people do come with those big plan sets already done with all of the requirements that we would require for a permit already on the plans. And sometimes they,
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that we have tried to go ahead and resolve people's requests when they are not giving us the amount of information that I'd argue would be helpful to them and to us to make a good decision. And to the extent that it is the Director of Planning and Zoning's decision not to request that, I hope that they're also being told, if you don't give us the information we need to decide your request, there's a good chance that you may be turned down. And I think that's maybe what we have to start doing if people are not willing to provide us, or if it's being suggested that they don't have to provide us the because it says, what it says is that the Director of Planning and Zoning may choose not to request these things, which to me means it's being chosen not to request these things, and I'm not happy about that. Just my last little bit of bitching before you leave.
Well, if I could pile onto that for a moment, please, that, okay, everything that Brooke said will help us, because
sure.
this was not a real difficult one, obviously, but sometimes they are, and we get some really nice, I don't think in most cases surveys are required, but yes, I get what Ashley is saying, that under plot plan, there's, may do a lot of things, and we don't necessarily require a plot plan for ZBA. Under the ZBA procedures, however, under 29.05E, applicant's responsibilities, applicant shall post a public notice sign clearly visible from front lot line of the affected property, okay, they did it. In the case of variance applications, mark the extent of the proposed structure and lot corners and lot lines of the affected property within 100 feet of the proposed structure, at least 15 days before zoning board of appeals meeting. That one's a little fuzzy. I think that gets to what you're talking about, Brooke, that we don't show how properties within 100 feet may possibly be affected. And that would be kind of nice to know, especially if we're increasing the encroachment of whatever yard we want to call this in this case. It would be good if the applicant, even without a survey, put, what's the next structure next to it, or is there
Sure.
a driveway next to it, or whatever. As I said, this is not complicated tonight, but sometimes the decisions kind of turn on that sort of thing.
I guess the other, I said we're playing ping pong here, but I back in my court. If somebody's coming in because they're gonna knock down a structure and start over again, that's clearly gonna be a major zoning permit.
Mhm.
And plot plans are required for major zoning permits.
Correct.
And in our section 2905, it says that they should provide us with an accurate site plan or plot plan based on a survey unless the Director of Planning and Zoning determines that that won't be necessary. And I'd like that not to be determined as unnecessary in as few cases as possible.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I will definitely, we're still, working on establishing precedent and policies and
Yeah.
procedures, and so
Appreciate that.
I will make sure that that is noted, and it will be discussed about as we continue to tighten up applications that come
Super.
in, and,
Ashley, again, you are so equanimous, I think that's the word, in
You're gonna
response.
force me to go to the dictionary.
If not, it sounds like a good word, even if it's not.
I think I made it up,
Yeah.
and I appreciate
I would have to know
that.
how to spell it to even find it.
I appreciate you very much, thank you.
you're welcome.
And I have nothing else to complain about. Has anybody else got any complaints?
Got an observation. The fella who was in here was complaining about what could be an item. And in paragraph 6 of the agenda, it speaks to items, you have item 1, item 2. And paragraph 5 does say non-agenda items.
Yeah, so that's why we listen to them.
Well, it's public comment on non-agenda items, it's not
But
we're
does it
gonna
have,
deal with it tonight.
yeah, but does it have to be an item for somebody to comment on it? Because I don't think it's an item. It's an item when there's a case.
I think an item is something that sticks in his craw.
I mean, it's gotta be an item that's related to something that we have the ability to grant relief on. I mean, otherwise, it's just.
Well, I don't think so, I think somebody can come and talk to us about anything.
Exactly.
There's certain requirements too for notice of items, right? Like, so sounds like he wanted to treat it as an appeal of a zoning decision. And so there's procedures that we have to go through to determine is notice of this public hearing of this appeal been properly out there? So you can't just throw an agenda item on like that. He has to go through the process.
Well, his
of
ability
everybody
to
else
speak
get
about it is
before
different
you.
than our ability to do anything about it. I mean, those are
Exactly.
two separate things. I mean, I don't even know how many days ago he got a letter saying we were done. His time might even be up to appeal, even if we had jurisdiction.
I got a copy of it.
I don't have to go into that, but I don't.
It was a few days, maybe less than
A
a week
week,
ago.
yeah.
But in any event, you do have to let them talk during public comment.
Yeah.
And so you did.
And it doesn't have to be on any topic that has anything to do with anything.
Correct.
They can come talk about the weather for 3 minutes if they want.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yep.
Do we have a time limit in our rules?
It's
about-
three-
We have a 3-minute time limit that we don't really have to
Enforce.
enforce most of the time, and when our residents are here expressing distress, it's useful.
Yeah.
Jim?
I know it's out of order on the agenda, but based on Marty's comments and your comments, when this ordinance was written, and I was one of the members who helped write it, and I regret that my name's on the page of it, because now I see how poorly written it really is. And I fought strongly against administrative site plans, administrative variances, administrative review. My reasoning was that at the time, we had a professional planner, full-time on staff. And before that, we had a professional planner, full-time on staff. Now, we have a continuum of moving bodies going through. And to learn this ordinance and to be able to interpret it properly is absolutely essential for the orderly development of this township. And I can see with what Marty brought up tonight, that things are slipping through the cracks. We don't know if there was I know there was a site plan for the city gate station because Marty's father was the chair of the planning commission at the time. And it required a landscape plan that made that building look like it blended in with a residential community. And now, nobody in the township even knows whether the doggone thing had a site plan or anything. This is why I would urge, you, the attorney, and you board members, urge the township to get somebody here full-time who can spend their time interpreting and working with the ordinance, get to know the township, because this is shocking stuff. You heard this gentleman complain tonight about junk in the yard? We wrote saying you can't store anything outside of a building. Discarded unused materials have to be stored inside an enclosed structure, period.
The blight ordinance?
Yes, it's in the storage section of the ordinance, under Article 16. There's no doubt where that stuff should be. And it's just a matter of having somebody and people on here full-time to do the job, to get it done right, or we're gonna have problems like what we had on Elkhorn come back.
Any other comment from anybody before I gavel us done? It's not even 7.